Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to E2E. And today I'm so excited because today we're going to have an amazing workshop directly with Douglas Vermeeren, directly from Canada. So on Monday, we had an amazing interview and we discovered a lot of things, and a lot of people wrote down their takeaways, what they got out of this amazing interview. So first of all, drop down in the comments and tell me which part of the world are you watching us right now live. Which part of the world, where are you from, which part of the country, which city, where are you from right now? And please write down hashtag live if you're watching us live, or hashtag recording if you are watching the recording. Okay, so I'm so excited for this workshop. Douglas is ready. Douglas is on fire, and it has been quite a busy day for all of us, but he made his commitment to be here with us, and I'm so honored for this because the connections this amazing soul has are incredible. On Monday, after we finished, we had a quick chat, and we were talking, and he was telling us all the entrepreneurs that he has in his network, and literally he can just pick up his phone and talk to them. Imagine having the chance of getting wisdom from the CEO of Reebok. Imagine getting wisdom from the CEO of Nike. Imagine getting wisdom from the CEO of Hugs Boots. These are the type of connections that he's got directly. People who not only have changed the course of history, but people who also are making an impact, and they are making the serious money. So how many of you would like to learn from somebody who is making serious money and who has connection and network with people who are making serious money, or you want to learn from somebody who learned from a book, who did an MBA, okay? So I'm so excited right now to introduce you once again, Douglas, and I see that he is ready. So you know what we do right now? We have a quick drum bass. So ladies and gentlemen, directly from Canada, once again, for E2E, expert to experts, the amazing and unique Douglas from Canada. Where are you, my friend? There you go. Welcome, Douglas, back again.
Thank you. I always love your introductions, and I've never met anybody that does such a great table rap. This is awesome. So I appreciate it. And I'm excited to be back. I see Lily's actually back with us as well, which is really fun. But I'm excited. I think we're going to share some really great things here today. So, it's interesting. And by the way, you're frozen, so I hope people are able to hear.
Go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
All
so,
right.
I kind of thought about what could I share to your group that would be most valuable, something that would really be able to empower them to be able to take their businesses to the next level. And, as I look back at kind of my experience when I was a young man is sort of when I began these interviews with the world's top achievers. And at the time, honestly, I was broke. I had very little money in my bank account. In fact, I even had a single day where my ATM card, it declined for $4.22. So I was flat broke. I was totally broke. And as I started interviewing these top entrepreneurs, people who literally had created multi-million-dollar and even billion-dollar industries, there was a lot of things that I learned about how to start looking at business, looking at opportunities, and how to look at life. And so I decided today what I would do is I would literally share to you my list of 7 things that you should think about with every opportunity that you're faced with. So whether you're already running a business and you've got ideas, there may be new opportunities to look at, and maybe some of them won't be very strong. Or maybe you haven't yet got a business. So what is it that you can kind of consider if you're just about to launch a business? Now, when we were chatting the other day, I also did promise that I would be giving away a free gift. So I want to share that what I'm going to share today, you can go into deeper depth with this subject, this idea, in a free ebook that I'm going to give you called The Best Opportunity Now. And it will talk about some things that are going on in today's marketplace. And also, again, in greater detail, how you can look at really and evaluate these ideas. The reality is when we're starting for business, there's 2 things that we got to worry about. How do we minimize risk? But then also, how do we maximize the upside or the potential that things are going to work out right? And if we can kind of manage that, but escalate this, like get the really powerful stuff powerful and the really crummy stuff out of the way, we often can create our best opportunities. Now, I do want to share that I am going to kind of lean towards one opportunity that I think is the best right now. Personally, I think a lot of you tuning in are entrepreneurs, and some of you are also are coaches. And so I'm going to suggest right off the bat, I'm not going to hide anything about this. I think that right now it's the best time in the world ever to be an entrepreneur. There's never been a better time. And the reason why is we're seeing the convergence of so much technology and support to become an entrepreneur. It's just literally an incredible time in the history of the world, right? And the reality is in the pandemic, there were many people who lost their jobs, or they were downsized, or they were let go. And so we've literally seen an explosion of people who've been able to create very successful ventures as entrepreneurs. In fact, there was a recent statistic that I read in the year 2020, for example, there were more than 548 million new entrepreneurs just last year, which means, quite frankly, that's 1.5 million people per day becoming an entrepreneur. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you're in really good company, and there are a lot of mechanisms to support that. But the other thing that I want to share that we're going to talk about a little bit too is that I think there's a really big opportunity right now for those that are looking to coach entrepreneurs. And a company that I own is called the Certified Entrepreneur Coach. So, we're not really going to talk so much about that, but I'll probably share a little bit here and there how I use these same 7 techniques to really determine if this was a good time to get into coaching entrepreneurs. Also, those that are partnered with us and work with us coaching entrepreneurs, why this was a good opportunity for them. But I want you to use the framework of what I'm about to share with literally everything that you do. And so in the brief time that we have, I think we've got about 45 minutes. I want to share these 7 points. So the first thing that I'm going to share that I think is really, really important about the first thing that you should really look at when looking at an opportunity is, number one, does it give you a sense of fulfillment? So write that down. And I think that this is really probably the most important thing that you need to look at. The reality is there are a lot of opportunities out there that will be profitable, a lot of opportunities that, in fact, there's a market for, and there's customers that are already there. But if it's not something that you really will feel fulfilled about, then you probably shouldn't be there. And I have to admit, I've gotten approached for a lot of business opportunities that probably could have made a lot of money that just weren't even in line ethically with kind of who I am. Now, I don't mind sharing you a few just so you can understand as an example. After I made literally my first million, I started getting emails and opportunities to invest in different businesses. One of the businesses I got approached for was actually to fund a site for pornography. Well, the reality is that does not jive with me. That's not something that resonates with me. And in fact, I've got a family and grandkids. And in fact, here's a picture of, my grandson and granddaughter. That would be the last thing in the world I would want them to discover is a pornography site that was funded by me. So obviously, I'm not going to consider that a good opportunity. Now, you can choose what you want to do, but there's also other things that I'm not interested to get involved in. On the stock market, there's a certain section of stocks that are considered sin stocks, and that's things like alcohol, tobacco. I believe now cannabis is now included in that, things like gambling. Now, these are actually real companies that are listed on the stock exchange. And for me, I've just personally chosen, I don't really want to get involved in those things because I've seen people, whether they're family members or others that I know, that have sometimes been damaged by some of these things, whether it's, alcohol and addiction and these things, or drugs or whatever, and, gambling. So I chose not to. So I think it's really important that as we're starting, and I'm looking for a black pen that I don't have today. That's all right. We will switch to blue. I think it's really important at the outset that you really look at how you can be fulfilled in what you're doing. How will you find validation? The other thing that I think is just interesting about this too is that if you start a business with the idea of immediate gratification, like to immediately just focus on making the money, oftentimes you can kind of see that that's not going to give you that validation. Businesses that are built on long-term and that are in harmony with the things that you really want to create often have a more long-lasting success for you. Now, let me just maybe share with you kind of what I mean by that. I'm just drawing a diagram here. You see a lot of gurus today. They say if you want to be successful in business, you need to focus on your passion and your purpose. The reality is I love what Warren Buffett said. He said, what you love about you is your hobby. What others love about you is your business. And so the thing that we kind of teach our students to do is, I think it's important you do find your passion and purpose and the things that make you feel fulfilled, but you also need to recognize where that overlaps the passion and purpose of other people. And so when you are serving, in your marketplace, you're really now building a tribe of people that enjoy and resonate with the same things that you do. In other words, if they get your vibe, they become your tribe. And the reality is this sweet spot of overlap in the middle that we see is actually going to be your most profitable place to play. But it's not just about money. In fact, it's interesting. If we think about this as entrepreneurs, there's always times when it's difficult to make things happen, right? Like maybe something's going wrong in your business, or things aren't unfolding the way that you'd like, or it's not happening fast enough, or whatever. If we build in an area where we are actually overlapping with those that share the same passion and purpose, oftentimes that also becomes a sense of validation. In other words, even though you're not making a ton of money, there's people that understand what you're trying to do, and they get your cause, and they'll get behind it, and they'll support that. So I think finding that sense of validation, that sense of fulfillment in your opportunities and your idea is such a really important part of things. Now, there's also something that I'd like to share. If you're familiar with the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, you'll remember in there, he said something very insightful. He said that many people climb the ladder of success only to realize that it's leaning against the wrong wall. So in other words, there are a lot of people who, again, start businesses, they make a lot of money, but as they get either into the process or they've now created a little bit of success, they feel very unfulfilled because it's not in harmony with who they really wanted to become in the beginning. So I think that's an important thing that we look at. And the reality is if we look at entrepreneurs, there's really about 4 key areas. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about these, of why they started the business. And if we look very closely, we'd see that the first one's generally freedom. A person starts a business because that sense of fulfillment that they're looking for is freedom. They either want time freedom, money freedom, freedom of location, freedom of choice, etc. They also look for, number 2, is recognition. Some people, again, they want to be recognized as an entrepreneur. And in fact, I have to admit, even for me, growing up, I wanted to be recognized mostly by my family, right? I started a business. I wanted them to feel like I was doing something valid. And by the way, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that has always been fun for me, and I'll just see if I can grab one here. I've got a bunch, but here's me on the cover of a magazine. And one of the things that was really quite fun about being on a cover of a magazine like that is that I got to share that with family members and others who maybe at first didn't believe in me. And so that feeling of fulfillment was the feeling of, now I've done something valuable. And the cool thing is I've had a chance to do that multiple times for multiple magazines. We could keep going for a long time here with all kinds. Here's one from me from the film The Opus, for example, right? And Law of Attraction magazine here, right? So when you're involved in these kind of activities, there's a sense of recognition that I think a lot of entrepreneurs crave. The other reason I think a lot of entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs is for the sense of creativity and choice. They don't have a boss anymore that tells them what they can and cannot do and how they can solve problems. And so there's a big sense of fulfillment that is also there as an entrepreneur. And then lastly, I think just this idea of creating a legacy and maybe even changing the marketplace, the way that we do things. So that idea of fulfillment, I think, is really important. Now, number 2, what I think is also really important as we're now looking at opportunities, what do we want to do, is what I call the time factor. And there's really 2 ways that I want to talk about time. One is now the right time, right? And a lot of times people evaluate that is now the right time by asking themselves the personal question. They say, well, I don't know if this is the right time for me. They say things like, I don't know if I have enough time or enough money or enough resources or enough this, that, and the other. And I think that that's actually the wrong way to look at time. The reality is the marketplace doesn't really care what you feel at the moment. It doesn't really care how you personally are ready or not ready. So the more important more important factor in time is not you, but the marketplace. Now, I might just mention something else about time and you personally. The reality is the majority of people make their decisions incorrectly. Now, what do I mean by that? They don't understand the power of decision. In other words, they make their decision based on where they are, not where they want to be. There's a Chinese proverb that I really like that says, if you would know your past, look at your current situation. But if you would know your future, look at your current decisions. Because you see, it's your decisions that actually shape your future. But the problem is most people, when an opportunity arrives, they make their decisions based on what's currently going on, not where they want to be. So in other words, the opportunity comes and they say, oh yeah, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough connections. And it's a very scarcity perspective of that opportunity. Whereas, if you think about it, if you want to have more time, if you want to have more opportunities, if you want to have a greater impact, well, the reality is you've got to make a new decision. You've heard the saying that says, if you always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you've always gotten, right? Well, the reality is, if you want something new, if you want more money, if you want more time, if you want more opportunity, you must make a new decision. You must do something different than what you've done before. So I'm a firm believer this idea of time when it comes to opportunities really has less to do with you than it does with the marketplace. There are certain things that the time has now arrived. Like, say, for example, if you wanted to become an entrepreneur coach, like what we're now training people to become, the reality is this is the best time in the history of the world, not only because there's, an explosion of entrepreneurs that's now arriving on the scene, but it's also that the technology to support them is here too. And there's never been a greater time in the history of the world. Like, if you even just think of your phone, you can do more with a phone than most companies could literally do 5 and 10 years ago. So it's an incredible time. So time is important. The other thing that I think is important if we're looking at time that most people don't evaluate is, does this opportunity, it's not just about the time has arrived, but what is the opportunity going to look like in the future? Is the opportunity going to get even better, right? Is there going to be more opportunity for this to expand? Is there going to be, again, things that will make this even easier in the future? So if I get started now, is it going to get even better? And I think that that's a really important consideration. Again, I know I keep talking about what we're doing with entrepreneur coaches, but the reality is that's the future. Traditional business has changed. The way that we, certainly during the pandemic, the way that we've worked and the way that we've built things, it will never be the same, right? We can never go back to doing things how we did, because so many business owners are now actually quite capable of working from home. In fact, I recently read a statistic on my own city, but I promise this is, again, around the world, is that a lot of the downtown cores, like where all the big office buildings and things have traditionally set up business, are actually very, very vacant right now. They're struggling to actually keep people working in these downtown centers, because the reality is people can work from anywhere now. The pandemic has given us that insight and that ability. And so there's big shifts like this that happen from time to time that really expand this idea of the future is coming. So if you've got an opportunity that you're faced with, you always need to look at what will that look like in the future. Now, I like kind of what Lily said, and I just want to acknowledge this. Taking the wrong decisions based on your current situation is so true. I need to learn how to take decisions based on where I want to be in the future. And the reality is sometimes when we make a decision in the present, we can't always see how it's going to turn out. Sometimes it even requires sacrifice and efforts in the beginning. But if we make decisions based on the direction of where we want to go, not the capability of what we have to create it in the moment, we'll find that even if we don't fully get to what we wanted, we're still heading in the right direction. And that right direction begins to change our circumstances and open opportunities. And there's a really cool quote that I love, a Zen proverb, Zen monks. It says, "Leap and the net will appear." Most of the time when we're faced with a decision, if we go after the things that we really, really want, even if we're not sure how they're going to happen, it generally creates a much better opportunity than we've ever experienced. And it's kind of interesting if we borrow a page out of the law of attraction too. Most people think the law of attraction means attracting things to us, right? Like you want the money, so it's going to be attracted to you because you share these meditations and everything. But the reality, that's not really how the law of attraction works. The reality is the money already exists. It's always been there. At the mint, they're printing money every day. And at the bank, they've got money every day. So it's not that that's being attracted to you. It's actually through your decisions, you're being attracted to it. And I think most people have that incorrect. They don't understand that they can say as much as they want, I want money. They can talk about affirmations as much as they want. I am rich. But until you understand that it's you that needs to, through your decisions and efforts and actions, move closer to that thing that already exists, you're going to have a really hard time finding it. So that's just a little bit on that decision. Again, in the book, when you go pick it up, which, by the way, you can pick up by just simply going to certifiedentrepreneur.coach.com, I've got a whole section on decision making, which I think is really powerful and profound that most people don't think about. Again, that domain is certifiedentrepreneur.coach.com, and I'll share that again a little later. So I want to talk a little bit about number 3, because number 3 is an interesting one too. Number three in evaluating opportunities is really about, is this idea, this opportunity, is it accessible? Because the reality is there's a lot of big opportunities that are available in the world today, but some of them might not be available to you. And why? Well, maybe there's a skill set that you don't have. Maybe there's an amount of money that you need to come up with that you don't have immediately, that you need to accumulate or get going with. Maybe there's sometimes an opportunity that, because of the networks that you travel in, you've not really received an invitation, or maybe even you've never been made aware of that opportunity. So how accessible is it? Now, I have to admit that one of the things that I think is really important for us to understand is that it's not entirely up to you. Meaning that if an opportunity comes and you don't have the skill set, it's okay. In today's day and age, we can actually hire people that will help us. And we can actually get advice from mentors and coaches and other supports that can help us to develop the skill sets. One of the biggest things that I find that most entrepreneurs don't understand is that they are not to be the worker. In fact, an entrepreneur is in fact much more like a conductor in an orchestra. It's not up to them to play every single instrument in the music piece or the song, right? Can you imagine if a conductor took the stage and immediately he left the stage to go play the piano, then to play the trumpet, then to go play the cello and all of these instruments? The song would be terrible. Yet instead, an entrepreneur in today's context actually needs to have the skills to conduct, but he hires the best musicians to help him to make the song. There's someone that plays violin. There's someone else that plays the trombone and all of these things. So the question that you need to ask is, what skills do I need to be able to make this accessible? And then who else can I bring in to make it even better? So I think that this idea of accessibility, quite frankly, in today's society where we literally can go around the world to get support for anything that we're doing, has really become, pardon the expression, a lot more accessible. We can do everything. But we do want to evaluate these opportunities. What do I really need to make this work, right? Let's talk about number four. Number four is a little different than the idea of accessibility. And that's that, is this opportunity that I'm about to face simple or is it complex? And the reality is the more complex an idea is, the harder it is to execute. And there are more things that can go wrong. In fact, let me just draw a little diagram here that I think is a good example of how sometimes success arrives. For most people, and maybe some of you are going to have experienced this in the past, the line to get from A to B often looks like that. So in other words, you begin, you go back, you go forward, you go around, you sometimes start at the beginning again, you have to come back. And this is a lot of how most of us arrive at success. Now, as you can imagine with that diagram, every little loop-de-loop and every new intricate nuance and change and thing that you need to pivot is an opportunity for something to go wrong. And so when I'm looking for an opportunity, I'm actually looking for something, if I can find it, that is much more direct, simple, as easy to understand as possible, that has the least amount of things that can possibly go wrong in it. In fact, one of the things that I used to do with a lot of my business opportunities when I would be approached with something, and I still do this sometimes, by the way, is I will take it to either my kids or others at that younger age, and I will ask if they can understand it. Can they see the direct points between A and B? Can they see how the transactions are made? Can they see how a customer is found? Can they see how a customer might choose this? And what are the key values? And not the USP, which is US selling proposition. That's a marketing term. What most people don't know about is a USV, which is a unique selling value, which is a customer term. That's why they purchase. Not the marketing of the story we tell, but what is it really that they're after in terms of the value. And so we need to be able to identify that in opportunities clearly. I love and I'm just going to pull a book here to read it. Okay, this is Jeff Bezos' newest book. It's called Event and Wonders. Jeff Bezos, you remember, is the founder of Amazon. And this book is actually a collection of their annual reports. And he said something that I thought was really kind of interesting about this idea about complication and simplicity. Listen to this. He says, anytime you make something simpler and lower the friction, meaning the complication, you get more of it. I think that's an interesting idea. I'm going to read that again. Anytime you make something simpler and lower the friction, you get more of it. So when we have an opportunity that is simple and we can actually make it even more simple, it becomes much more effective and people participate. We get more customers. It's just easier to work with. Now, let me share with you just another interesting concept on this idea of making something simple. Well, it's interesting if we look at how a lot of people teach and train entrepreneurs right now. I think that there's a lot of things that are incorrect that are being taught, right? One of them you've probably heard is that you need to hustle, you need to grind. If you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to wake up at 5 a.m. and become part of the 5 a.m. club, or you need to stay up late and you need to do more and more. You've also even heard people suggest this idea of you got to take massive action. Well, whenever I hear somebody say that, I kind of notice immediately that they tell me to get busy, but they never really tell me what to do. And so for me, that's a big red flag that they think hard work covers up for a lack of knowing what to do. If you don't know what to do, just hustle, grind, wake up early, take massive action. And I'm here to say that that's absolutely the most foolish idea that you could ever come up with for running a business. Remember what we talked about in the beginning, that some of the things that an entrepreneur is looking for is things like freedom. Remember, time freedom, money freedom, location freedom. We talked about recognition, creativity, choice. We talked about legacy and change. I want to go to this idea of freedom for a minute. The reality is if you are hustling, grinding, taking massive action, waking up at 5 a.m., staying up late, well, you really don't have any freedom. And so, sorry, everybody who's teaching that, but that's one of the most stupid ideas that I've ever heard for business in my life. Instead, we want to not take massive action. We want to take deliberate action. That's what productivity is. Productivity isn't doing more to get more. Productivity is getting more, but finding ways to do it better and more efficiently and doing less, but still keeping the productivity either high or better, right? So let me maybe a way of looking at this. This is something called the funnel effect. Now, here's the funnel. This is, you've seen it, like people pour liquid into a funnel and it comes out the bottom and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, the reality is most business owners run their business like this funnel, where they feel like if I can do more, if I can meet more people, if I can put out more marketing, if I can create more products, if I can reach further, faster, blah, 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 I'm going to get more. Well, the reality is most companies that do that end up getting less, right? A funnel. They put in so much effort, but they really don't get much back in return. Now, how do top achievers run this? As I interviewed more than 400 of the world's top achievers, I found they all run their life this way. They don't focus on doing more. Instead, they focus on being more specific and doing better. So in other words, they look for ways, how can I keep the productivity high, but the activities that I need to do, it's not massive action. It's not hustling and grinding. It's actually being very specific and selective on what I choose to do so that I can produce mass results without the same kind of efforts, right? And so we get better. Now, by the way, I did kind of mention last time we were talking together here, I think it was in this training. I apologize. I do a lot of trainings for people. But this idea that a lot of gurus are also saying you need to step out of your comfort zone. Now, it's interesting that when I went out and I interviewed 400 of the world's top achievers, I found a lot of the ideas that are commonly taught in personal development or by your traditional business coach are absolutely crap. Here's one of those ideas. A lot of business coaches, traditional business coaches, and a lot of gurus tell you to be successful, you need to step out of your comfort zone. Well, the reality is there's a lot of stuff in my life that I'm not comfortable with. And if I were to go out and learn how to build websites and learn how to do the marketing and learn how to do my bookkeeping and learn how to do my taxes and learn how to do all these things, I'm going to really run out of bandwidth, right? Like I've only got so much effort and energy to do something. So if you look at what all top achievers do, they actually do it this way. They focus on what they're brilliant about, and they actually delegate the rest to other people. So in other words, if I need a website built, I'm going to find somebody that already knows how to build a website, right? You've probably heard of the book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And in it, he said that to become an expert at any given thing takes 10,000 hours. You've heard that? And whether that's true or not, you can debate that. But the reality is if I have to go learn how to build a freaking website, by the time I'm done, I've wasted hours and hours and hours where I could be focusing on something different. The reality is what I encourage you to do if you're a business owner is instead of focusing on getting out of your comfort zone, focus on getting into your brilliance zone, because that's what people pay you for, right? People pay you for the things that you're really, really good at. And that's what commands the highest returns for you and your business. That's productivity. So you don't do things or waste time learning things that aren't going to contribute to your area of brilliance or your expertise. So this is a really, really powerful and important principle that most people miss out on. Leonardo da Vinci once also talked about this idea of simplicity. And he did say that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think that a lot of us, we don't spend, first of all, enough times in our business looking at this idea of working on your business rather than in it, to be able to create simplicity. We don't look at how we can eliminate those friction points, as Jeff Bezos talks about. How can we make things so that they flow more smoothly and we can get more of it? And so I think this is a really important thing that you need to do regularly. And this is what separates businesses like Blockbusters, who disappear because they fail to innovate, and companies like Netflix that literally now dominate the market when it comes to, let's call it, movie rental, because that's really what they're doing. The only difference is you're now on a subscription model. So I encourage you, you've got to find things that are going to make things easier for you. Now, in a moment, before I reveal the next one, I think that there's something that we need to connect it to, and that's what I'm going to call systems, because that's what allows us to do this, right? You can't just do this if you really don't understand how systems work in a business. And one of the things that I learned immediately as I went out and started interviewing the top achievers as a young man is how crucial systems are if you ever want to scale your business, right? We're going to talk about that in a moment, because this is one of the points of building business. But you can't scale unless you have systems, because the reality is if you are a cog in the wheel, you're a clog in the wheel. That saying that says, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. If you're an entrepreneur and you believe that way, you've just now built a company that has no ability to expand or grow, because everything is based on you and your efforts. So the reality is, if it's meant to begin, it's up to you. But if it's meant to be, it's up to a team. And so it's really important that we understand, back to this idea of simple and complex, we need to build systems that we can integrate other people in. If something's complex, well, of course we should be afraid to hire more people and bring them in, because if we can't even understand it, how can we explain it to someone else, right? So it's really important that if we want to duplicate, simplicity precedes duplication. And that's such an important principle that we need to keep that in mind. So let me now talk, if we can, about number 5 in evaluating opportunities. Number 5 is what I call measuring the risk against the reward. Now, the reality is every new venture as an entrepreneur has an element of risk. There is a lot of great ideas in the world that, quite frankly, have failed. And there's also, by the way, a lot of really crappy ideas or weird ideas that have succeeded incredibly. In fact, if you're familiar with the toy, the Slinky, you know, that little springy thing that goes down the stairs, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people said that's a terrible idea. It's never going to work. Who would buy a spring for a kid, right? Like, think about it. It's a very industrial looking toy and everything else. And the reality is that's been the all-time best-selling toy that's ever been made. In fact, I recently read a report that said that if we were to take every Slinky, those spring things, ever sold in the history of the world, and put them end to end, we could actually go around the world 150 times. Around the entire circumference of the earth 150 times. That's a lot of Slinkies. And as you can imagine, that's a lot of money. So it's not always, how should we say, the best idea wins, right? It's often the idea that's executed the best that wins. So the question is will your efforts actually produce rewards? And I think this is something that we often don't look at very often. You know, what are the actual rewards that could be there? You know, the return on effort, not just the return on investment, but overall effort. And the reality is you've probably heard it said before by, again, many of the gurus in the world that, you know, you can have your cake and eat it. You know, the saying that says you can't have your cake and eat it. They say you can have your cake and eat it. Well, the reality is you can't, because you have to bake the cake first before you can eat it, right? If we're using that analogy, the truth is I can't be in two places at once. And so while I'm giving my efforts to build this company, there are going to be sacrifices that I have to make. There's going to be things I have to let go of that I'm just not going to be able to do because I'm doing other things. In fact, even in my own life, I can think of examples where, for example, I've got business things I've got to do. Maybe it's make phone calls or reach out to people. And then in the same breath, maybe my family wants to go hang out at the zoo or go out to the beach or on holidays. So I've got a choice to make, right? I can either do the work that needs to be done, or I can go and spend time with others. And by the way, I'm not going to make a judgment, because sometimes I think it's better to go spend time with your family. And other times I think you just need to get the work done. But what I'm trying to illustrate is that, again, you can't be in two places at once. There will be efforts that you'll have to trade and make sacrifices for. And not only just your time, but also your capital. What are you giving to hopefully get a better result in the end? So we need to match that. We need to measure that. And the reality is with every opportunity, there's risk, and with every opportunity, there's upside. So the goal of an entrepreneur is, how can I minimize the risk and increase that likelihood that we'll succeed, right? And the more we can do this, the more your risk goes away. And by the way, with our students that we teach in the Entrepreneur Coach program, I don't even really like to use the word risk if I can avoid it. The word that I actually use is evaluation, because the reality is there's certain things in your life that you know a lot about. I'm just going to throw out one example. Let's say, for example, that you are really, really good at playing a guitar, right? And so if I were to come to you and ask you for advice on playing a guitar, you've done so much of that. You've got so much experience. It's a passion. You've learned about it. You're connected to it, that you could probably tell me anything that there is about playing a guitar. And so by asking you, all of a sudden the risk of whatever question I have diminishes dramatically, right? So the word that I would prefer instead of risk is evaluation. And the more that we know about things, the more experience that we gain about things, the better we become as an expert to evaluate it. In fact, I've got a friend that's involved in real estate investing. And no kidding, he can almost look at a deal and inside of a second tell you whether this is going to be a pretty good deal or not based on his previous experience with similar deals. So our goal as entrepreneurs, looking at any opportunity, is to really minimize that risk by becoming more proficient in evaluating it. I think that's an important point. Another thing that I think is interesting to talk about with this idea when it comes to rewards, effort versus rewards. Well, what is it that we consider a reward? And sometimes I think a lot of people have some, I guess, different ideas of what that can be. The reality is that sometimes the reward, and that's a blessing for us, and we make our decision based on the financial rewards that can arrive. But sometimes, and I've done this personally, you most likely have too, I've taken on opportunities because the reward is not financial, but it's something else that I'm seeking. In fact, if we return to those things that most entrepreneurs are looking for, oftentimes those rewards can be categorized in those areas. Again, freedom, time, money, location. Maybe I'm taking an opportunity because it will allow me to work in a new location and give me the opportunity to have that freedom, right? Maybe it's recognition, that it will give me the opportunity to be recognized for work that I do. And it may not give me a lot of money, but it gives me that brand positioning that I'm looking for. Or again, maybe it's something where it's creativity and choice, where I will take that opportunity. It may not give me more money than what I'm currently experiencing, but it certainly gives me the opportunity to be more creative, to explore my talents, and to make choices about how I'm going to solve certain problems. And lastly, of course, legacy, right? Maybe I'll choose that because there's not a lot of money involved, but it's going to change the world. So I think it's important that we recognize that the rewards that we're seeking are not always financially. And so I think that that's a really important consideration for all of us to look at. Now, I do want to share the last two, and I know we're trying to keep this in 45 minutes, so I'm going to be really, really quick. Number 6 is, when I'm looking at an opportunity, I ask, how much support is there for me to be successful with this? The reality is that sometimes there's really great opportunities, but there's zero support. And so my likelihood of being successful are maybe kind of slim. So you want to find opportunities that have big support to them. In fact, one of the things that I love, and one of the reasons I feel our entrepreneur coaching program is the best in the world, is because these 400 of the world's top achievers that I originally interviewed, people like the founders of FedEx, Nike, Reebok, the Avita Group, Christian Dior, Jordache Jeans, Utano Sportswear, California Citrus, Ted Baker, Uber, UGG Boots, all of these guys, they are actually part of our faculty. And so can you imagine if you're a business coach? Just imagine you're at an event and somebody stands up and says, yeah, I'm a business coach. I've read a bunch of books. I help a few people. I've, been involved in coaching business. Well, that sounds pretty good. Now, what if the guy next to them stands up and says, I'm a business entrepreneur coach, but I've got the support of more than 400 of the top brands in the world. I just got off the phone this morning talking to Brian Smith, the founder of UGG Boots, how to solve a problem. And I've got this big structure that if you have any questions or challenges, I can actually go to my network and we can get some real answers on how these big million and billion-dollar brands have scaled. Who would you choose to work with you, right? So you want to have somebody that, or an opportunity that has massive support so that you cannot fail. In fact, the more support there is, it's almost like kind of building a scaffolding around you that there's no way you can fall, right? So that idea of support is really important. Let me just tell you that support comes in a few ways. Number one is obviously the players on your team. You want to surround yourself with the best people possible. In fact, even more than you can sometimes afford is the way to do it. Hire the very, very best. You take care of them. They will take care of you. But I want to share, kind of a little bit of a story. I know of a kid who, no kidding, when he graduated school, his dad bought him a Lamborghini. and he never ever had driven a sports car of that capacity. The sad ending to the story is the very same day that he got it, he actually wrapped it around a tree, then a fence, then a mailbox. It was terrible. But we've got this $300,000 vehicle that he literally, on the very first day he got it, he thrashed it. And as I talked to him about it, why this happened, he was quite clear. He said it was really because I never drove one and I didn't have the support to know how to drive one. So sometimes even people who are given an amazing opportunity, the Lamborghini of opportunities, if they don't have the support to take advantage of that, sometimes it can end in a very terrible disaster. So this idea of support, and not just how much support you need, but what is the support that's available for you? I think this is a really big question. If you've got an opportunity with support, oftentimes you can really hit a home run and you can make it work. And by the way, I'm going to talk about support just quickly as three mechanisms. The long and short is we call it systems, right? But the three elements of a system, or the three systems that you can possibly choose, is one, you can delegate, which means you can get other people and get their help, get their wisdom, get their mastermind. That's one way. Two is what I'm going to call structure. So that's a business structure or a procedure that works. And third is really the tools that are inside that structure that allow you to have all the things that you need for that support. So that's really important. Now, let me maybe just in the couple minutes that we have share the last one that I wanted to talk about. When I'm ever looking at an opportunity, and this one is, I think they're all important, but if I were to number the top two importance, number one would be that sense of fulfillment, right? And number 7 would be this. It's, are there limits to the idea? So in other words, can it grow? Can it actually be scaled? Can it get bigger than what it is? Or are there limitations? Are we going to see an ending on this? Is there, something where I'm going to one day not be able to use this? Not too long ago, I was talking about a fellow who, when I gave this idea, he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I was like, what's so funny? He goes, man, I wish I had known this about 20 years ago. I said, well, what do you mean? Like, tell me. And he says, well, one of my first businesses that I started was a VHS or VCR repair company, like to repair video recording machines, right? And he says, so I started this video recording machine and I even used the name VHS Repair in it in the name of the company. And as you can imagine, as we now evolved first onto DVDs and Blu-ray, and then now we're totally on digital stuff, he wasn't able to grow. He wasn't able to expand. In fact, if you think about it, many people in the marketplace have no idea even what a VHS cassette looks like, and certainly nobody plays them anymore. So we've got to understand, are there limits to the idea? Will it grow? Is there possibilities beyond what I'm currently experiencing? So I want to just share that you guys, again, take a look at all the opportunities that come your way and measure them against these 7. And when you find an idea that qualifies and you feel satisfied, you're on to something good. I want to remind you that if you want to learn more about this, again, come and pick up the book. It's called The Best Opportunity Now. Obviously, it showcases this idea of becoming an entrepreneur coach, which quite frankly, I believe is the best opportunity now because it meets all of these criteria in a successful way. And anyone can do it. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It's accessible. It doesn't matter, again, what your current skill sets are. It's easy and it's simple and it's not complex. And we've got a formula and a strategy to help people be able to coach entrepreneurs at a high level. And for the support, like I said, it's second to none in the industry. I don't know of anybody who has a coaching program, including the Harvard Business School where I graduated from, that doesn't have nobody has the kind of entrepreneurs that we do, right? Like, again, the people that are doing training for our coaches are, again, like the founders of UGG boots, the founders of Reebok, the people who are the marketing directors of Uber, the people who are, the co-founders of companies like Ted Baker and technology companies like Kajabi and all of these things. We've got those guys and we're the only ones in the world that do. So this is literally the best opportunity. And right now, with more than 548 million new entrepreneurs entering the marketplace every year, that's 1.5 million new entrepreneurs every single day. There's never been a greater need for coaches to help support these people. It kind of reminds me of, you've probably heard that story of the gold rush. They said in the 1840s, California discovered gold and everybody from around the world became a prospector and headed there, started panning for gold, mining for gold. And there were a lot that became rich. And maybe that's like the entrepreneurs. So many people becoming entrepreneurs, they're heading to the gold rush. But if you look at who really prospered the most, and the companies that are even some of them still around today, it wasn't the prospectors. It was the people who were the support networks for the prospectors, the people that helped them do their job. And that's really what entrepreneur coaches do. So long after this gold rush is kind of settled, we're going to see that it's the coaches that actually receive the greatest benefits. And then right now, if you're looking for an income stream, I mean, our coaches, many of them are doing 70, 80, 90K to start. And I've got some that are a lot higher than that. So if you're interested, again, just head over, grab the free book. It'll give you the information. But if you want to go further, connect with us. And you can find that all at certifiedentrepreneur.coach.com. Again, one more time, certifiedentrepreneur.coach.com. And we're looking for you because we've got so many people that are now approaching us looking for coaching that, to be quite frank, right now, it's your time. And we've got some really special opportunities where we've reduced our rates to be able to find those coaches. And we'd like to get you certified and into the marketplace as quick as possible. Because again, there are people waiting, 1.5 million per day, right, that need coaching. So if this interests you, if it resonates with you, come and join us. And if not, at least go pick up the book, because we'll go into deeper detail in there for you on how to recognize good opportunities. So Moses, it was good working with your group today. I appreciate you having me on. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much. And by the way, click on this website, because as soon as you click on it, there's a pop-up. You put in your details, and you can download and get the copy of the ebook. Correct, Douglas?
Absolutely. And there's no cost. Again, this is just our gift to you. So go check it out. There's no obligation.
Yeah, he promised it gifts on Thursday. So just go on, click on the link, click on the website, and watch it. And let me just tell you one thing. Douglas is just the first time he has appeared in our show, but it's not going to be the last one. We made it concentrated, okay? So today you could get the juicy part immediately. And then this is just the beginning, because Douglas is our friend, and he will be happy to join us back again for another topic and for other surprises that we are preparing for all of you. Thank you so much to have joined. Thank you so much, Douglas, to have given us this deep insight of these 7 steps when opportunity surfaces. Share this video with people that you love, people that you want to help, with your team, with your colleagues. Share it, share it, share it, and let's spread the word. And go and check on the website, follow Douglas, and thank you so much to have joined us. It was my pleasure to have you, Douglas. Thank you once again for being with us.
Thanks again.
And see you next time. See you on Monday for another show of E2E. Thank you, guys. See you. Bye-bye.